And here's the CAN harness that you will also need to connect as well, because there are two systems in place. One is CAN for the control area network, so the car can communicate with the steering wheel and it won't throw an error. And the lid module will actually act as a bridge to help translate all the controls on the steering wheel into a CAN signal that the Generation 1 R8 ECU can read. So really, there are a couple of wires that you need to go and wire up. I'm going to go step through each wire here. One is ground, of course, and the other one, let's see here, is power here, right here. So they gave me taps to tap into the ground and power source on one of the main connectors called connector F that I will show you here in the diagram. And what that means is that, yeah, they gave me a couple of taps right here. What were the taps that they gave me? So here. And they gave me these taps here. And now, yeah, these are okay, fine. I'm not a big fan of these type of taps because you have to close them and then have to get pliers and press down really hard, and it leaves a big indentation in the wiring tap. I'm not a fan. So I'm gonna go and use posi taps to tap into ground and power here. I'm just gonna tap into it. Now the next two other wires that need to get tapped in that they recommend you do is to tap in these two wires for the start button. Now, these two wires actually can be tapped, yes, using either posi taps or these clamp style taps here. Next, these are the actual important, crucial wires here, and these are the CAN signals. One is high, one is low. So one will have a higher voltage, one will have a lower voltage for the CAN system. And you unpin the original two wires, and then I think you plug it in here, and then it will start a daisy chain of the CAN signals going into the CAN module that is right here. This is the CAN module, and then going back towards the system through the same connector F here with these two new terminal pins that I will plug in as well. So that is basically the main wires that you need to plug in for the CAN system. All right, so once the steering wheel is off, the next step is to access the connector F. Connector is somewhere around here. In order to do that, you need to take off the top part of this cover here, and it's just really two clips that you press in here and then take out. It's just pretty simple. After that, you have access to two T25 screwdrivers. Take those off, and then you'll be able to take off the lower part, which will give you access to the connector F module in order for you to do some wiring in order to be able to communicate with the rest of the CAN system. So in addition to these two screws that you need to unscrew, I found out that there was one more screw down here. Let's go here. It's that screw right here. There's actually three screws, and it's right here. Here's the lower plastic cover for the steering column. It's right here. So once you've unbolted all three screws, you could then go ahead and pull this out, pull a little bit out of this. Finally, in order to get this out, you also need to, there is right here, there is this little paddle here that allows you to adjust and tilt the steering wheel. You need to unscrew two more screws out here. Take this out. That'll allow you to maneuver and push and pull out of this little tongue here in order for you to get out this lower part of the steering column. So now what we need to do is now start wiring up. And where is this connector? Connector F? Connector F is here. See, this is connector F here. So we're gonna take this out and then we're gonna start repinning and rewiring stuff. So what you need to do in order to dislodge this connector from the steering control module is there's a locking pin here. You need to, let's see, let me try to, there it goes, zoom in and lock this, focus. You need to go and, with this little flat blade screwdriver here, right here, you need to go and take out the locking pin, this red locking pin here, by pushing it out this way. From there, you have access, you'll be able to then push down on this tab here, right here, push this down, and then you'll be able to like take this out. Otherwise, you're gonna be less struggling like I did for like half an hour to an hour trying to figure out how to actually get this out. There were no instructions from Abrace to say this is what you exactly need to do. So here you go. Again, pull this red pin out and then push down on this lock tab here and then pull out. Okay, so now this is actually a connector within a connector, kind of. So once you get this connector out, there is a little tab here. You push on this tab up top here, and this will release the majority of the terminal pins here. And you just slide it in and out, like kind of like going down this way. So make sure to peel back the tape covering to give you enough slack so you can take this out. Once you have that taken out, you now have access to the individual pins here, which you can start depinning. You're going to need to depin a couple of wires here, as well as tap into ground and power here. This is actually, this red wire is constant power. There's a constant supply of power. So if you feel like you don't want to tap into it and try to find another area, it's fine. Let's see here. You can wire up the ground and affix it to like this screw here or any other bare metal. However you want. If you need constant power, this is the most readily available right here. And I had planned to depin these two. However, they are actually pretty hard to depin. They're pretty jammed in there, as you can see here. So I'm gonna go in with some posi taps and tap both these, the brown wire, which is ground, the red wire, which is constant 12 volt. Then after that, I'm gonna start depinning some of these wires here to hook up the can. So for the can wires, the can L and H wires, they are coming out on pin number 14 and 15. Abrace tells you to take these out, plug this in here. You're gonna make a little connector here, and then from this connector, you're gonna go and connect it to this piece here on the can harness here that Abrace provides to you. From there, you're gonna then plug in these two wires here that are the can wires and plug these into the terminal pins over here. So it creates a daisy chain that the can module will be able to intercept and regulate the can signals appropriately. So everything's wired back up on this connector here. I tapped into the positive 12 volt using a posi tap here to the red wire down the harness. And then instead of tapping into the ground wire that's connected to this connector, I found that there is a ground connection point here. So I've hooked up this ground wire from the harness and I spliced together some wire, and I use a terminal end to be able to screw into this ground point over here. So that is what you need to do for the comfort can low, the comfort can high signals, as well as the power signal and the ground wire. Next up is to figure out how to connect the two starter wires here. These are starter wires near the starter ignition coil, which is right around, it's like behind this electronic steering module, so I could actually use the start button on the Gen 2. All right, so we're off to wiring the two starter wires. Here, you will need to take out this module. This module was at the bottom of the steering column, and it is the steering wheel electronics control module. If you can see here, this is the front, and this is the back, where we took out our connector here and we wired up our comfort cam module as well as our power and ground. Now, in order to get your car to start with the start button with the ignition key turned on, you're going to need to access the starter ignition cables that actually go from here into a cable that routes into the back of this starter ignition solenoid that rests here. And this is where we put the key in and turn it. So once we crank this, we send a signal to here. Now, what we need to do is access this harness here. And this harness, I'll show you later, is on the steering column. In order to take this out, this is a little tricky. There are two tabs, one in the back, that hold it in place. There's actually a little screw here as well. So first step is to take your T9 screwdriver, T9, not T10, T9, take that out. Once you have that, go to the back of the module, and you can use your finger and fish around and then push this tab and then release it down here. The hard part is this tab here. This tab, you can see here. Yeah, right here. It's an internal tab. I do not know why Audi decided to do this. This was very frustrating because there was no manual that tells you how to remove this. You need to somehow fit some tool here to press on this tab, and then the entire module will fall out. How you do that? Best way is to go here. This is where the ignition key goes. You release this first tab, so it drops a little bit. You get a little bit of clearance, and you get a pick like this. You need a pick like this, and then you're gonna go in and fish around, and then go move past this guard here on this connector. Once you're here, okay, once you're here, I was able to feel something, but actually my pick was up top here. I didn't realize. It did not give me enough leverage. Rotate down, and then you're gonna have a lot more leverage to push in, and then everything will fall out in place. All right, let's look at the connectors here to figure out where to wire our start wires. And here is the main connector that connects into the steering wheel control module here. If you can see here, right here. So what you need to tap in is pins number 7 and pins number 12, the red and the yellow, in order to get a crank signal. And what Ambrice told me is that if you measure the voltage between pin 7 and 12 with the voltmeter, it's 12 volts. Once you crank the car and send a signal to the starter, the voltage drops from 12 to 0 volts. So therefore, you need to wire in 2 signals, 7 and 12, to drop the voltage here. And then once this voltage drops, this actually voltage drop starts from here, because this is in the back of the starter, the ignition, the solenoid here. It drops the signal, it goes here, and then sends the rest of the signals to the ECU to crank the engine and start the car. So I need to figure out how to wire in 2 wires. Amber's gave me 2 wires here. These are the 2 wires. These are the 2 wires here. So here is the harness that I took out that goes from the steering electronic control module here. There's a connector here. I depinned it. And then this one goes to the ignition starter switch. And I had to take it out because I wanted a lot of room to be able to tap into these 2 wires, the yellow and the red. And these are, the yellow goes to pin 12, the red goes to pin 6 here, correspondingly on this 12 connector that you can imagine it's right here. I did have to take out this little silicone tube here to be able to have enough slack and tap into these 2 wires here. Have no fear, I will just rewrap this, and then we should be good to go. And here is how everything is connected and tapped into. Once again, I've tapped into wires for the pin 6 and 12, the red and the yellow wire for my generation R8. And yeah, it looks pretty neat. Yeah, as you can see, I've rewrapped the wires into a sheath like so to be able to protect the wires. So once everything's wired up, make sure that the module, the CAN module, as you can see right here where I mounted it, it's above the lower airbag right here. And there should be some blue lights and some red lights here. Make sure that that is on once the power is hooked back up to your car. It's very important. If this is not on, then disconnect the connection again. Make sure that everything is not blocking any connectors, and yeah, double check your wiring. But you cannot move forward if you don't see these lights on. So we have wires from the CAN harness, sport mode, the spoiler, the rear spoiler, as well as the mag ride. So Ambrace decided to create some wires so you could control these 3 functions on your steering wheel. For me personally, however, I do not have sport mode because this is for electronic transmissions. I have a manual transmission. Mag rides, I've gotten rid of my mag ride, so it doesn't matter for me. The spoiler, it's not worth it for me because I rarely will use the spoiler mode to raise the spoiler because it will just raise automatically at 6 miles per hour anyway while I'm in the car. So these 3 functions I will not personally install them. However, I will tell you the general idea of what you need to do. So let's go. These need to get routed through the center console here. Let's see here, let's zoom in. You gotta route these lines through here and up around here. And I actually have a short walkthrough that I will link to you up here to disassemble the center console. You're gonna need to take off the top of your shifter here in order to be able to access the base connector of this panel here. And that's where you take out the terminal pins and rewire them, as well as add some additional wiring. And this is where these additional wires here will live. They'll live underneath the console here. So that is generally what you need to do if you want to use the mag ride button, the spoiler mode here, and for the electronic cars, there's a sport button here that you press on, and you could control all of that on the steering wheel. However, I'm not going to bother installing any of those on my car. All right, so steering wheel has been put back on, everything's wired up, and this is what it looks like once I start the car with the ignition on. See here. Let's turn the volume. Let's make sure the volume works. Volume works. Change the channel. So that works. These buttons, drive select, these are probably the buttons for your spoiler, mag ride, and sport mode probably here. I need to confirm with Ambrace here. Start button, nothing, it doesn't do anything. But the nav,
route guidance is not active.
That works. I can make let's see here. That's my mute button. Let's press this button here. It did something.
Cancel.
Oh, I think this is voice guidance. And then when you press this button, I think it goes to the phone. And it says insert phone. So yeah, majority of these buttons work. There are a couple buttons that probably don't do anything for my car, or they're programmed to work on the mag rides and things like that, and the active spoiler and all that. So last thing is, well, dry select is probably like another button that maybe could be routed to the CETE exhaust valve controller here. But of course, does the start button work? And yeah, let's press in. There you go. Overall, things work, and here we go. There is the Gen 2 Audi R8 steering wheel. So with that, I'll say goodbye, and hopefully see you guys in the next video. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe.